What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
All things continually lead back to serpents, dragons, fairies, Nephilim, and fallen angels.
In the distance looms a mystical mountain.
As Mike Heiser used to say, if it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important.
At its peak, a great fire burns, concealing the Prometheus lens.
This development of this knowledge that's being talked about within the mystery schools.
An ancient artifact said to reveal the hidden truth within a deliberately darkened world.
There's a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world.
Join us as we travel and explore the vast unknown. It's a hero's journey with dragons to slay, damsels to save, and innumerable treasures to hoard. Torches high.
The Smithsonian, they caught wind of a giant skeleton. They would send their agents out to get it.
But it takes courage to move forward, to move out of the shadows, out of the unreality that we think of as reality.
We are all on the hero's journey.
Mankind has been in contact with and influenced by extraterrestrials.
Leave the Sitchin mound of bull feathers out of it.
Look at it from a different perspective.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I'm your host, Jason, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus lens to take a second look at everything. I tell people I live for a good cigar and a good conversation after a hard day's work. And I'm sure you guys have seen me smoking cigars, on occasion. And I know it's a guilty habit, but it's one of my few guilty pleasures in life, so I'm going to hold on to that. But I wanted to give a shameless plug, and this is not a paid advertisement, guys. This is just something that I had found and I really enjoy, and I just wanted to give them a plug and let all my cigar smoking friends know about it. But it's called the King Cigar, and you get a box every single month. It's like a monthly subscription. And they send you 3 or 4 different cigars each time, but they're all, premium, high-quality cigars, and you get the profiles of them and stickers and all that stuff every month. I just got my first box and smoking on one now, man. I really enjoy it. But good product, good price, and with Father's Day coming up, ladies, I'm sure your husband would enjoy a good cigar. So there you go. Hey, and King Cigar, if you hear this, hey, man, I'm open for a sponsorship now. I'll do this every week for a few free cigars. But this week, guys, got a really good episode for you. I know I say that every week, but hey, I think they're all good. But I met this gentleman on a chat, and people share their experiences and things like that. And this gentleman was a police officer in Alaska for several years, and named off a bunch of just wild experiences that he had. So I reached out to him and asked him if he'd be willing to come and talk to us about some of these strange happenings and stuff that he had, and he agreed to come on and talk to us. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But I'd like to welcome to the show Richie. Richie, how you doing, my friend?
How's it going? Appreciate you having me on. So like you were saying, I was a cop in Alaska there for 20. I was a cop for about 25 years, 29 years altogether. And I'm looking at those cigars there, and I definitely need to have my wife watch this right before Father's Day. Hint, hint. That cigar subscription thing. Yeah. But I was a cop up in the North Slope Borough. So the North Slope Borough, Alaska doesn't have counties. It has boroughs. And this borough, this county basically is about the size of Oregon. And so in that area, there was only one place you could drive to. The rest were Eskimo villages. And Eskimo is a perfectly acceptable word. That's what they call themselves. And there's only one post you could drive to. The rest were fly-in. It's very rural, remote. And a lot of blurry stuff happens up there. One of the things you and I had been chatting about there, the only post you can drive to is Prudhoe Bay. So that's up where all the oil comes from. 1 out of 5 gallons of gas you put in your car came from there. And the Dalton Highway is the road that goes there to Prudhoe Bay. And it's just a strip of gravel right through wilderness. The same thing it was thousands of years ago. Flat as a pancake tundra, so you can see for miles. And it was a beautiful day out, probably bright and sunny, probably about 10, 12 degrees out. And I looked up probably about 10 miles up the road, and I saw, we've all seen a shimmering in the road where there's heat coming off the road. And that's what I saw, but it was the most distinct I'd ever seen, and it was in the shape of a giant dome. Just a huge, the top, the bottom, everything, just like a giant soap bubble across the road. And I'm pulling up to this thing, and it's not like a faint shimmering. It's really distinct. And I'm kind of getting some trepidation as I'm about to drive into it because it's across the highway. So I drive through it, and nothing really happened other than suddenly it just, we've all had the experience where you walk into a room, people are gossiping, and then they suddenly stop because you interrupted something wrong. And everyone just kind of looks at you, waiting for you to leave. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was evil somethings there that were waiting for me to leave. And,
right.
and as I came through it, we had a very accurate thermometer on that truck. And so it's 10, 12 above zero, good spring day for Alaska. And instantly the windows started icing up and it got real cold in the car. So I had to crank the heat as high as it goes just to keep the windows. And I saw the temperature instantly drop to about 48, 50 below. So just instantly it dropped 60 degrees. And so I'm driving across this thing. This is this weird feeling of evil, and it's 60 degrees colder. About 2-3 miles later, I get to the other end of it. I can see the shimmering coming up ahead. I punch through it, and suddenly that sense of evil went away, and everything starts melting. All the ice starts melting off the truck, and it jumps up 60 degrees, 10, 12 degrees again. So I go up Adigan Pass. I do whatever I was doing that day. Maybe an hour, 45 minutes later, I come back. And there it is again, just like a giant soap bubble across the road. So I drive up to it, same thing, go through, and it just feels like there's just a meeting of evil things there, and I interrupted it, and they're waiting for me to leave. And the temperature instantly drops 60 degrees. I had to crank the heat up as high as it goes just to be able to see out the windows. 2-3 miles later, I drive up, there's the other end of it, punch through it, temperature jumps back up, the feeling of evil goes away. And I've never quite made any sense of that. That's why I put it in one of these group chats you and I are in, because I'm trying to figure out what it was. I have no hypothesis of what it might be. Yeah.
And did it even move? I know you said you went through and you was gone for like an hour and came back. Was it in the exact same spot?
No, sir. It moved a little bit east. It just like drifted slightly east, but it was still there across the road. And yeah, like a giant soap bubble. But I'd never seen anything like that. And even those subarctic temperatures, I mean, those happen in the winter there, but it hadn't been that cold in months. And it's one thing if had been that cold 2 days earlier and suddenly warmed up, but it had been months and it had been that cold. And I don't know where that came from. But when I was talking to my wife about this, something that occurred to me is one of our other posts is Anaktuvuk Pass. And Anaktuvuk Pass, as the crow flies, is about 60 miles away from there, which in Alaska terms is next door neighbor. And so Anaktuvuk Pass, when I was posted there, we'd fly in a tiny little plane that was so small, I'm usually sitting next to the pilot, and he'd call into the Anchorage Tower and say he's on approach, and they'd always say, I'm on approach Giant Creek. So there's 2 different rivers that kind of come through into the Anaktuvuk, converge, and then go out, and we come up this valley, Giant Creek. And so I started talking to the locals when I was posted there, and the locals there are Eskimos. They're the Nunavut, which are the last inland Eskimos. But the elders started telling me that every now and then somebody will go camping up there and they tell them not to because in the middle of the night, something will attack their camp and start throwing giant boulders, grunting, smelling bad and throwing giant boulders. And so they have to go out in the middle of the night, just run back to the village. And then they come back the next day and their camp is trashed. So up Giant Creek, they just don't go camping anymore. But I looked it up on the map and Giant Creek is not its actual official name. It's in Inukpisugruk, which in Inupiaq means giant person. So the Eskimos themselves call it Giant Person Creek, and very practical. They hunt everywhere except for up there. Something attacks them. They don't know what it is. But they don't need to. There's caribou in other directions. But they have both these. Yeah. So that's what it's been suggested to me that there's like a portal of some kind. Maybe these things are protecting. There's Bigfoot stories that surround UFOs and things. I've never seen Sasquatch. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, though, and I believe it exists. I've never seen Rome. I believe it exists. I've seen enough evidence of that. Same thing with Sasquatch. But a lot of times people around Sasquatch will see UFOs and things, and a little above my pay grade, but I'm not sure. Maybe there's a connection there, and it's been suggested that maybe the cold I saw was some sort of portal, some sort of evil portal. You look in the Bible, and of course Jacob goes to sleep one day, and he finds out he's near the staircase. The word is like ladder or staircase, where angels going up and down. So clearly, even good angels, they have to get to work somehow, and they've got some constraints for time and space. But if the good guys do that, the bad guys probably have to do that too. They have to get to where they're going, and that probably entails some sort of portal too. So,
well, that bubble that you went through, was it a town, or was there houses nearby, or was this just like out in the Alaskan wilderness, like nothing
wilderness around? Absolutely nothing around. It's just a ribbon of road through just absolute virgin wilderness, and there's 4 pump stations for the pipeline, because the pipeline kind of runs parallel to the road there, and the nearest pump station from where this happened was probably only 30 miles or so. But there's nothing there at all. It's just flat tundra. It's a valley that punches up into the Brooks Range there, which is why they put the road there. It's an easier place to go up through the pass. So nothing nearby.
And you said it's normal, like in the wintertime, to get like a 60-degree plunge in different
That's pretty
spots?
chilly. Well, not in spots, all across. I've never seen it that distinct in one place. The coldest I've ever seen is about maybe 56, 58 below zero is an ambient temperature, and the wind chill around 130, 140 below. But it's all across the area. I've never seen it in one little spot like that. The closest you'll find is when a blizzard's coming. It might be 40 below zero, and suddenly it'll jump up to 10 above. That tells you a blizzard's on the way, and it's best to get your work done outside because it's going to hit soon. But I've never seen it like that in one tiny little, 3 mile across thing. But temperatures in the winter there get pretty chilly.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just wild, because just seeing something like that, the thoughts going through your mind. Mm-hmm. Of course, curiosity is like, man, what is this? Should I get out? But then you have just these freezing temperatures. I mean, even if you were the bravest man in the world, you wouldn't want to get out into those kind of temperatures.
Yeah. And it was it was just kind of freaky too. It didn't occur to me even to get a picture, to stop and get a video. It's just, okay, my windows are icing up. I can't see. I was slowing down, turning up the heat, trying to just be able to see out the windows, and it just felt all wrong. And so, yeah, I wish I got a picture, but it didn't occur to me.
Yeah. Well, like L.A. Marzulli talks about, that brain fog.
Yeah.
That when you're around, these entities and supernatural phenomena, you just get this brain fog, and which I think LA would have been proud of you. He always says rebuke first and ask questions later.
It felt like something big and evil was there, and I'm never really nervous about that, just because I bought with the blood of Jesus. So I belong to someone else. You want to mess with me, you got to ask Dad first. So I'm never that worried about it. But I've seen UFOs before too, multiple times in Alaska, and when I later moved to Spokane, Washington. I think all of that is something evil. I think it's all demonic. I don't think it's necessarily demons directly, but like if you go into a hospital, every doctor there is in the field of medicine. Not everyone in the field of medicine is a medical doctor. And I think that everything you see, I think UFOs are demonic, whether they're created by them, whether it's controlled, something like that. And therefore it's nothing I want anything to do with. But even that, in Washington State last summer, I was living in Spokane for the last couple of years, and in my other job, I was driving across the state, and it's middle of the day. It's Moses Lake, Washington. If you've ever been to Washington State, it's not all evergreens. Most of it's a big flat desert, just a big lava plain. And right in the middle of Moses Lake, Washington, beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. I look out over this field, and over this field is hovering what looks like a flying wing, like a B-1 bomber. Is it the B-1 or the F-117 that doesn't have a tail? I can never keep those straight. The stealth.
I have no clue.
I think it's the B-1, but it's a flying wing, basically, and it looked like someone had got one hot and stretched it really far out, about a half mile across. Little bitty bump in the middle for a cockpit. And this thing was at a weird angle like this and just hovering over a field and kind of drifting towards me. And I'm going closer and closer, and I'm like, okay, this thing's going to be right next to me in a minute. I look at it, look back, and it was white silver. So I look at it, look back at the freeway, look back, and it was gone. I don't mean I lost track of it. It was a, quarter, half mile away. It was just gone. And so I checked the UFO reporting line, and there was somebody flying overhead in Alaska Airlines flight at that minute. And he was looking down at a silvery white disc right there. And he said he was watching it, and then just saw it zip away. So I don't know that guy. I don't know anything about him, but I must have seen it from the angle, from like right on the edge. So, yeah, I didn't want to see it. I don't want to see any more. I've seen several.
I mean, that's just wild to me. I'm just trying to process everything. Like up there in Alaska, because a lot of us have never been or know the culture. Just from an outsider, I would assume there is a lot of people that were, are either still Eskimos or descended from those tribes and have their oral traditions, and legends and lore surrounding some of this, supernatural stuff. Have you heard any of the stories from the locals and what this phenomena is, or is this just a common thing up there? Or
I kick myself for not asking one of the elders about the bubble thing I saw, because they probably could have explained it. But the giant people, they just accept that. Don't go up there. Something creepy lives up there. But something they also have, when my wife and I first moved up there, is the imar. And the imar are the little people who live on the tundra. When we first moved up there, we heard about the little people who live underground. We're like, oh, that's a cute little native legend. By the time we moved away, we believed they were real. I firmly believe, because I've talked to too many people who have had firsthand encounters with them. We had, when we lived in the village of Koktovik, which is a little island in the Arctic Ocean over by the Canadian border. We were living there. We had kids. They used to play at our house. I know these kids. They're not liars. And they were walking along the beach one day, and there was a shipwreck there. And they saw this little man sitting on the side wearing caribou or seal skins, dangling his feet over like this. And they got scared. They ran to the nearest house. It was only probably 50, 70 feet away. And they told the adults there, and then they came out right away, and they saw little bitty footprints in the snow and the mud going out in the tundra. And so they tracked them for a while, and then they got a big piece of tundra where there's no snow and lost it. And so they told them, well, next time you see them, talk to them. I've talked to so many people who have seen these things that I believe they exist. I think it's probably something demonic, but I don't know. But the legend of the Iminark was they used to live among humans, and then in the village of Point Hope, that a human dog killed an Iminark baby, and that caused a rift, and so the Iminark decided to go live underground. And so now every time the Eskimos something disappears or is moved, they half-jokingly say it was Iminark, but a lot of times they believe it really was, because so many people see them so often. One of the other villages I was in, which is over on the western coast, Wainwright, one of the local officers that worked there, community service officers, honest man. He's a Christian. I knew him well. He just doesn't lie. But he was saying there's a certain place across the inlet where they go camping, and they'll hear right at that spot from, again, flat tundra. There's no trees to hide behind, and they'll hear Eskimo drumming from underground. And Eskimo drumming is not bum, bum, bum. It's a specific staccato bum, 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 bum. It's a specific one, and they hear that coming from underground in this one spot. And so they know the Iminark lived there. And he was saying that one of his friends just had been on the inlet in a boat, a regular modern speedboat, and saw an Iminark standing at right that spot, just watching him from the shore. So they did what they were doing and eventually fired up the engine. It took off at probably 30, 40 knots. And the Iminark ran beside them for like 2-3 miles on the shore, which is the Cherokee little people, almost identical stories, that they're mischievous, small, live underground, that they can run super duper fast. But from Ireland, you got the fairies. I think it's all the same thing. The little people, the leprechauns.
So
I think
when you say little, like how little? We talking 3 foot?
Like knee high, a little over knee high. And so they're just little over your knee, and they tend to wear just traditional Eskimo, what the Eskimos used to wear before, they discovered, Carhartts and stuff. Traditional skins and things like that. Something disappears. It was the Iminark that took it. A boat gets moved in the middle of the night, or a car. The Iminark picked it up and moved it, stuff like that. But the more after learning about the Iminark, I didn't know that other natives had the same legend. Because like I said, there's the Cherokee little people. In Alaska, or in Hawaii, they have the Minnehaha. I might be pronouncing that name, Minnehana, I believe. Those are the little people. You're walking along a path at night and you hear them drumming. You're supposed to get out of the way because they'll kill you. And it's the same thing. These little people, these little warriors that live underground, and just don't mess with them. So I didn't know about any of that stuff. The others, I just learned about the imar. And Eskimos tend to not be superstitious.
Just the common themes are amazing.
Yeah. Well, even from, I don't know where you're from, you look like you probably got a little Northern European in you. I'm basically, if you threw a snowball at a map of Northern Europe, that's where I'm from, just all the all the cold places up north. But up there, you've got all kinds of the dwarves, the leprechauns. It's all the same thing. They're mischievous. Don't tick them off. You leave them alone. They might leave you alone, but they're always stealing stuff, and just don't make them angry. But the Eskimos are not superstitious people. When Christianity got up there, they overwhelmingly
and
accepted
don't mess
the
with
Lord.
Their pot of gold or the Lucky Charm.
Yeah, exactly. The Eskimos, like when they learned Christianity up there, they kind of abandoned all the old shamanistic practices and things. But at the same time, if they're practical, they don't really have time for superstition when you've got an environment that's constantly trying to kill you. So they believe the imar are real because they see the imar and they just accept it for what it is.
Are you a hunter, hiker, prepper, or just someone who likes to enjoy the great outdoors? If you are, you know that good quality gear is hard to come by. Squatch survival gear is veteran owned and 100% made in America, baby. And their cryptid-inspired line has you covered. Everything from Sasquatch to Mothman. Whether it's a weekend trip, a day hike, or the ultimate bug-out bag, Squatch Survival Gear has you covered. Head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com and use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide. Hey guys, got a call to action for you. If you guys are enjoying the episode and have not done so already, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and if you're listening on a podcast platform, please take the time to give us a 5-star review. This helps us to grow the show and to reach new listeners. Back to the episode.
In Washington,
did your police officer friends ever have similar tales and experiences?
Yeah, my old partner, Ken, when I was in Point Hope. Now, Point Hope is the oldest continuously inhabited city in North America. There was people living there when Jesus walked the earth. And it's kind of a dark place. I mean, it's got some old traditions. But when he was there, a pilot landed, and he was a white pilot. This is important. Who landed, and he was just white as a sheet and scared the first time he'd ever been up there. And he said he just saw thousands of these little people running across the tundra. And he's like, what did I just see? And he explained to him what imar was. This guy was Caucasian. He had never been up there before, had never heard the legends, didn't know what he had just seen. And then the elders, when Ken asked the elders about it, they said, oh yeah, it's been raining so much, they're getting flooded out. So the imar are coming up to the surface. That white pilot got back in the plane after unloading, never returned again. He was terrified. He just saw thousands of these things. And a bunch of people from the village, when they heard this, immediately went out on four-wheelers to try and find the imar, but by then they'd been gone. So
it's like when you get up there, it's just where it's so densely populated. It's like it's a hotbed for, extinct races, cryptids and things like that.
Monsters. Another legend up there so this was originally, I heard about it with this guy by the name of Charlie Brower, who wrote this great book in the 1800s called 50 Years Below Zero. He's one of the first white people that came up. He was a whaler, came up and contacted the Eskimos, learned the language, married an Eskimo girl and stuff. So in the 1800s, there's a lake up there called Tashekpuk Lake, which the town I used to live in, Barrow, it's the northernmost city in North America. And Tashekpuk is near there, maybe 40, 50 miles. And they said the Eskimos never take their kayaks out in the middle of the lake anymore because the monster fish, if you get farther than a little bit from shore, these fish would just come up and eat them whole. And so I was on a search and rescue once near Koktovik. And there's 2.5 million lakes in Alaska. That's only the lakes 25 acres or bigger. They're everywhere. And I was about 1,000 feet up in a helicopter, and I looked down. We were looking for some lost campers. And there was a lake there that couldn't have been more than a city block. It was even square. And I saw a fish jump and eat something off the surface. And I saw its back, its silver back, its white belly. This thing had to have been probably 8 feet long. Probably jumped up and ate a seagull. I couldn't see what it was. But at 1,000 feet, a world record king salmon, I wouldn't have seen the splash. And I saw this fish directly, loud and clear. And so the elders told me, oh, yeah, that's there. And so I talked to my partner again, Ken, who he's a cop, but he's actually a scientist in real life. He's a wildlife biologist and all this stuff. He got into police work and just stuck with that for some reason. But he didn't bat an eye. He's like, oh, yeah, those are the northern pike. They'll get as big as the lake they're in. But to Shekpuk, that's something that there's monsters in there to this day, and people don't go out in the middle anymore because it's kind of hard to get to. It's one thing when you're going over land and you had a traditional kayak, but there's no real reason to anymore. They camp on the shore. No one goes out in the middle. It takes boats into it. I think those monsters are still there. Like I said, I saw one. I saw that with my own eyes.
And that's the thing too, is, your profession alone adds credence to your story and your experiences, because you are trained, to be, analytical, to, get the facts, remember the details. And I'm sure there's many other officers in the field that has had similar experiences to you, but they are very timid, to say the least, to come forward and talk about it.
Yeah, and that's true, because one, we're trained to see detail because kind of your life depends on it. You're always analyzing. Two, we're out in dark and creepy places, middle of the night, when most sensible people are in bed. And like these stories, I don't particularly share them that often because it doesn't help my credibility. It hurts it. People look at that and roll their eyes. I have nothing to gain from it, but I'm just telling what happened. What happened. And I know it makes me sound like a whack job to say I've seen UFOs, but I saw what I saw. I can only say what I saw, and I've seen them on multiple occasions. Another one, while I'm thinking about a Koktobic, this was one of the weirder UFOs. I saw multiple, probably 12 or 13 while I was in Alaska, probably another half dozen while I was in Spokane, which
Wow.
Washington and Alaska are the number one and number two for UFO sightings. And Washington's number one for Sasquatch sightings as well. So, and no, I've never taken drugs. I've never smoked pot, never done any of that stuff. Bourbon. Yeah, I'll do a little bourbon. I like a little bit of Kentucky bourbon. Anyway, Koktobic, I was out behind the hangar one late at night, and the hangar is just a World War II hangar that hasn't fallen over yet on the tundra, out of town, no electricity, no lights, no other buildings around it. And I look out over the Arctic Ocean, which was frozen at the time. It was the winter. And I saw an orange orb glowing, just hovering over the ice. And there's nothing out there. I mean, you draw a straight line from where I was past that orb, it's going to be 2,000 miles and you hit Siberia. There's no shipping. There's no anything out there. And this orb was just hovering over the ice. And so I'm behind the hangar. I'm like, I bet I can get a little closer. So I drive down to the end of the runway. As soon as I start driving, it disappears. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just go to the end of the runway, see if there's any polar bears out there. They like hanging out at the end of the runway. And it's gone, so no big deal. I go back to the hangar, look, it's gone. I figured, I'll just look one more time. I go behind the hangar where I was, and it was right there again. And I found if I go 50 feet in any direction, it disappeared. I can only see it in that one little spot, not even the front of the hangar. So it didn't move, it didn't do anything, it just sat there. If I could only see it in that one spot, and I had no idea what that was.
It's like a cloaking device.
Yeah.
You go get closer, it just cloaks.
Yeah. Or, they forgot to turn it on in one spot, or I don't know what the deal was. Or maybe they were checking something out in one spot. I don't know. My personal hypothesis on aliens is that, like I said earlier, it's demonic. I think that they're going to be stepping forward. 500 years ago, the demonic forces claimed to be the gods, lowercase g, of volcanoes and thunderstorms and lightning and all that stuff, because we didn't know better. So they claimed to be this thing we didn't understand. And now that we understand those things, I think they're claiming to be the gods of technology. I think that's why we're seeing so many UFO sightings now, because they're softening us up to step forward and openly say, hey, we're your gods, lowercase g. We put you here, and so worship us, which if you ever glanced in the book of Revelation, there's a whole lot of that going on.
Oh, definitely. And
yes,
if
sir.
you look at it, it's the same story, like as far as like Genesis 6. Throughout every culture, throughout every continent of the world, it's just been repackaged. And the same thing you hear about people being abducted. and impregnated and go to the doctor, confirmed pregnancy, and then 2-3 months later, it's just all of a sudden gone.
Yeah.
And there's no miscarriage. And it's so hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around. And I'm just like, that's Genesis 6. It's just, they're getting at a different angle now.
Yeah. And they're, I think when Genesis 6, to those who aren't familiar, it's the Bene Elohim, which are the sons of gods, basically angels, came down, saw that human women were pretty hot, and basically did nasty things with them. And if you go to the book of Enoch, which is controversial, but it's quoted verbatim in the Bible in the book of Jude, and quoted many other places, gives it some credence. But it says when these Bene Elohim went to the daughters of men and had sex with them, that they created the Nephilim, these giants. And they were half human, half angel, and so they were neither. They were neither of earth nor were they of heaven. And so according to the book of Enoch, when they died, they became demons and evil spirits. And so I think that's the truth. I think the first time they did this, they got potluck as far as DNA, and they got these monsters. I think over the last 6,000 years, they've gotten better at it. And I think some of these things are DNA experiments they've done, including the UFOs. And I think that's what they're probably stealing eggs and things and getting humans, because they're like matching things up and creating some modern day Nephilim. That's my hypothesis.
Better at blending in.
Yes, sir.
They've got better at blending in. And when you go to the parable of the wheat and tares, I mean, that's what it's talking about. I mean, let Scripture say what it says. Genesis 3:15 says Satan has a seed. The woman has a seed. And then in that parable, they plant the seed. But it said when they went away, the enemy came in and sown his seed.
Yeah.
And they was like, Master,
I hadn't thought about it like that before. That's interesting.
He said, Master, do we pull up the bad seed? And he's like, no, because at least you'll destroy the good seed. Let them grow together.
Wow. And I had not thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at the two side by side, they're identical. You cannot tell until harvest time. And then when you get into Matthew, what does it say? That when judgment time comes, he will separate them as sheep and goats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Bible says, be nice to strangers, because some people have entertained angels unaware. Those are the good guys, which I've seen an angel before. I can tell you that story. But if the angels are strolling around among us, I imagine the bad guys have people strolling. And before I tell that, I'm going to tell us this happened last week, and I only told my wife about it because it's wackadoodle, and I don't like telling these stories because they're true, but they hurt my credibility. I told you where I work earlier. I'm not going to say it on the air because I don't want to, bring them into disrepute. But I still work as a police officer, and there was a crowd of people at where they were coming in, and this woman came up and smiled at me, young lady, probably late teens, early 20s, and short, and just smiled at me friendly. And her head was a little too round, but I didn't notice. But her skin was, well, let's just call it what it is, Donald Trump orange, just that special Donald Trump color of orange, which no big deal, people spray tan. But around her nose and mouth, it wasn't. It was glowing. I don't mean like pregnant lady glow. I mean emitting light. And she smiled at me, and then she kind of looked like bothered, like she forgot something, like when I realized I forgot to zip my fly. And she looked concentrated, and I saw the orange curl up around that and the light dim, like the skin that was orange kind of went around the light part around her nose and mouth and disappeared. And then she went in the crowd, and I lost her. I don't know what happened, but it was crowded. I mean, she might have walked off. She might have disappeared, but I lost her. It was just a second, and I don't know what that was, but it didn't look very human to me. I imagine if it was a angel working for the good guys, she'd probably be better at covering things up. But, like I said, that wasn't the one I was going to tell you about. I've seen an angel before, and I saw a demon, both time in college. I'll tell you the angel story first, because that one's slightly more boring. But the angel story, I just had a burden for a friend of mine. I heard she was having a lot of problems, into some stuff she didn't, and I just had a burden from the Holy Spirit to pray for her. So I did. And for 3 days I prayed for her, and then I woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked in my doorway, and there was an angel standing there. And what I saw was this dude was kind of tall, maybe a little over 6 feet, and wore a white robe with a blue sash and no wings or anything. And the skin was golden, and the hair was curly, and I can only describe it as more golden, Both the skin and the hair were really golden. And he was looking with the door jamb right up against his face. And he was looking probably 10 miles out was her house in that direction. And the door jamb was a half inch. And you could just look, the look on his face, like he was looking at something far away with a look of deep concern on his face. And I'm just, oh, geez, I'm sitting up in bed. I'm rubbing my eyes. Holy crap. And he just disappeared. Suddenly, I could see from my bedroom into the bathroom now where I couldn't before. He was in the way. And then I woke up in the morning, told my roommate about it and stuff, but then the burden was gone. Like I'd been praying with this deep burden and it was just gone. And so I kept praying for her, but she ended up doing a little better then, but I didn't catch up with her. But that was when I saw the angel. A little later on, this is going to be hard to believe, but in college, I walked away from the Lord a little bit. I know that's never, ever happened before. Somebody goes to college and I'm the first. But I walked away from the Lord a little bit, and I was at a party I probably shouldn't have been at. And I was stone sober. There were some people smoking stuff. It wasn't me. I've never smoked pot, never taken drugs. But my friend Rick decided to go in the bathroom and do the Bloody Mary thing. To those who weren't familiar, one, don't do this. But you look in the mirror intently without blinking. You say Bloody Mary 3 times, and she's supposed to appear. And even though I was kind of not walking with the Lord at the time, I'm like, Rick, don't do this. I knew this was trouble. Just don't do it. But he did it anyway. And I stayed out, and he comes back in. He goes, well, nothing happened, but it just felt really weird. And suddenly all of us that were at the party just got a craving for pizza, frozen pizza from a specific grocery store. Like all of us, this one Rosar's frozen pizza there, which was weird because all of us were friends because we worked at the Godfather's Pizza and we could have gotten good pizza for free from there. But all of us are suddenly, frozen. We craved it all at once. So we get in the car. I'm the only sober one, so I'm driving. It's at night. I got to paint a picture a little bit. So Spokane streets are really super wide. And the residential streets are 3 or 4 times larger. They just had a lot of space when they built the place. We're going down an arterial about 2 or 3 in the morning, brightly lit, and we see this dude stalking away from us. And I mean, like walking, but like just giant, angry, just strides. And this dude was well over 6 feet. Like he was huge, very tall. And he was wearing a long black cloak with a hood, and it was covered. And he's just walking, just looking angry and ticked off. And we're slowing down. Like even Rick's like, I was the only person who knew the Lord, and all of them were like, what is that? It's not just, they clearly saw something. I get up close to him and he turns and he looks at us. And this is kind of hard to describe, but when somebody, you call someone's name, they turn, they kind of scan. Oh, hey, how's it going? And after that, they turn and just look right at you like they know where you are without scanning. That's what he did. Like he was watching us through the back of his head. He turned and looked right at us with just a look of fury and hatred and anger. And his face had a line right down the middle. And half of it was pure black, half of it was pure white. Not like Caucasian, African American. I mean, just pure white, pure black. Yeah. And he just looked at us with hatred. And as soon as he looked, he turned 90 degrees and started walking down the middle of one of these gigantic wide residential streets Spokane has. And I stopped and I came back, backed up. I lost him for maybe 2 or 3 seconds and he was gone. I don't mean we lost track of him. He was in the middle of the street. If he'd taken off sprinting, there's nowhere he could have gone. I mean, he couldn't have got to a house in time. He vanished. And I think to this day, Rick called the demon and a demon showed up.
Hey, psst. Come here. Just act natural. Prometheus Lens has a secret group. It's a gang of like-minded people searching for truth on what they're calling the hero's journey. They have secret monthly meetings, meet and greets with authors and speakers, and secret members-only episodes that nobody else gets. These guys and gals also get all the shows 48 hours earlier than the rest of us. But a little birdie told me that you can go to PrometheusLensPodcast.com and follow the members links at the top of the page. And once you sign up, like magic, all those secret episodes just pop into your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever podcast app that you use. They make it so easy that your grandmother can do it. It's so cheap that your landlord is a member. You're without an excuse, dude. George's eye.
Hey guys, what's going on? I don't know if you've followed me since the beginning, but the audio and video quality has gotten a lot better in a very short amount of time. Now, I would like to take credit for that, but I just simply cannot. A good friend of mine named Jason has come forward and helped me with this whole process. He's been editing the videos. He's been bringing the audio levels up and equalizing them and compressing them, making everything nice and clear. And it's just been a huge, huge help to me. But, so I want to give him props and thank him personally. And if you have a podcast and you are looking to free up a lot of time and bring the quality of your work up, you need to holler at Jason. He is the man, and he will hook you up. And I'm telling you firsthand, all that extra free time that you're going to have on your hands, you're going to be able to enjoy that with your family, hiking, just whatever, festivities you like to do and enjoy. And it's going to free up more time for you to do the one thing that you love to do, to create content. So I highly recommend you go check out Jason, up your game and your free time. Links will be in the description.
And he was not happy about being there. Like he didn't want to be there. But that's kind of when I stopped hanging out with those guys. That's about the time I started getting my life right again with the Lord. So I think if you call a demon, one will show up. So don't call them.
Yeah. And that's one thing that really bothers me, and I talk about it quite a bit on the show, is as Christians, we have the most supernatural book in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like our modern Western material mind, if it doesn't seem rational to us, if it's beyond our reason, we just disregard it and push it to the back or navigate around it to the next passage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you said you're timid to tell these stories because it hurts your credibility. And that's sad because it's the truth. You're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And it's the truth that's in Scripture. And the Christians that profess they believe this book are the number one people that are first in line to chastise you and shun you like a crazy person. And then you have people on the opposite side of the spectrum that go into the occult and go into witchcraft and these different things. And they've had these experiences. They've summoned these demons. They have talked with these entities. They've taken the ayahuasca and the DMT and been to these other realms.
That's a dangerous stuff. Please continue.
And then when you go into these churches and they decide to try to go to the Lord because the path they were on was no good, and they start talking to their pastor or people in the church about the things they've seen, the things they've done and experienced, and they're immediately looked at like a crazy person or called a liar. And then what do? They leave the church, and it's like, you have the answers. All of it's in your word you say you believe, but where you refuse to talk about it, you are losing souls.
Yeah. If you and I were soldiers in a war, we're trying to attack the enemy. How much easier would it be if the enemy didn't even believe we were there? Not a lot of sneaking around to do if the enemy doesn't even believe we exist. And it's the same thing here. How easy is it for the devil to just get, demons aren't real? Well, not according to my Bible. In my Bible, the number one most common miracle Jesus did was casting out demons. For every mention of miracle, at least 50% of them was casting out demons. Sounds to me like demons are a part of our life, and we need to kind of suck it up and realize that. And that's not some old weird superstition. The demons didn't go somewhere. They're just changing shape. Now it's the gods of technology. And that's what, according to Revelation, this is all going to be opened up here pretty quick. I think that's the form it's going to take, that they're going to step up and say, aliens, we're the good guys. We put you here. Everything's great. But really, it's demons all along. It's the same demons they were messing with then.
Yeah. And shows like Ancient Aliens are paving the way for it. That's why they're so successful, is because we have a generation of people that are seeking truth, seeking spirituality, seeking knowledge. And the church who's got all the answers, or should, don't, because they've avoided all this stuff. And so what are they going to do? They're going to go to the people that say they have the answers. And the people that have the answers have partial truths, and it's twisted by the devil himself.
Yeah.
So therefore, when the great, judgment comes and they show up, oh, we're your seeders. We created you. Now we're here to advance you to the next level of civilization. They're going to go running because the church failed.
Yeah. Something you see in Revelation. I mean, the book of Revelation, there's a little thing in there that almost seems like a detail that got thrown in there. But like Chuck Missler used to say, there's no such thing as unimportant in the Bible. It's like a giant, massive German-made clock. Every piece is just intricately fit. And one of the things is John had basically an angel that was showing him around and just kind of showing him different things. And John fell down at the feet of the angel to worship twice. And the angel had to stop him. And I think that's a lot more significant than we think. John is probably literally the least likely person in human history to be fooled. He literally used to walk with Jesus. And the book of John says he used to lean against him at supper. Jesus had to eat one-handed. He saw him in his glory. He saw him go to heaven. He was there. He's the only disciple or apostle that was listed as being at the cross. He knows who he's talking to. And even he became overwhelmed and fell down to worship at the feet of an angel. And how much more an angel who is a good guy who didn't want him to, who stopped him. But in the very near future, we're going to have some angels stepping up and saying, no, worship me, go ahead. And I think that's a very big significance of those passages. Very soon, we're going to have angels, evil ones, that are stepping up and trying to be worshipped, and it's going to be very hard not to. There's a passage in Matthew 24 that I always puzzle over because it almost seems like a paradox, which it says, to deceive, if possible, even the elect. That makes no logical sense. My car can drive the speed of light if driving the speed of light were possible. Okay, these two, they contradict each other. My car can either drive the speed of light or it's possible, but to deceive, if possible, even the very elect. I'm not the very elect. I'm a believer. I barely make the cut, I think. But you and I, we know the Lord, and the things we're going to see are going to be enough to deceive us. To deceive, if possible, even the very elect. But the reason it's not possible is because the Holy Spirit's got our back. It's not, he's not letting us. Even when I walked away from the Lord, there was things I was willing to do. I never got the opportunity because God was there the whole time saying, nope, you're not going there. And so when all this happens, we're going to deceive, if possible, the very elect, but God's going to be right behind us, hand on the collar going, no, come back here. Just like John was stopped by the angel. Don't worship. Don't get overcome by what your eyes see.
Yeah. And the book of Enoch said when they came down, they bred with the daughters of men. Not only did they create the Nephilim giants, the mighty men of old, it says they taught them forbidden knowledge. They taught them the art of weaponry, beautifying eyelids, abortion, the cutting of roots,
magic, enchantments, astrology.
All these things. And they were worshipped as gods because of their knowledge and their power. And so we fast forward to today, like you had mentioned, they present themselves in a way that we will receive them. We've already been preconditioned for this alien high technology AI agenda. So that's what they're going to show up as. And if you look, that's the staple mark of the fallen angels is technology.
Yeah.
Roswell, 1947. If you look at progression of technology throughout the years, it's just been slow progressions. Man, once you hit 1947, huge advancements in technology.
Yeah.
We're trading with these fallen angelic beings again.
And look at the Nazis. I mean, they were the absolute pinnacle of technology going into World War II. They knew stuff that's why we stole a bunch of Nazi scientists afterwards. It's like, okay, you guys deserve to die, but you're so smart. We want to figure out, our entire space program came from Nazis. Where did they get all that? Especially while fighting a war, and they're still they came up with intercontinental ballistic missiles that worked. I mean, they came up with all kinds of stuff. And so something that I've found interesting is in the book of Revelation, it talks about, if memory serves, Pergamum, where Satan has his throne. So, is it Pergamum? I don't want to misquote it. I'm pretty sure it's Pergamum.
Yeah.
It says, you are where Satan has his throne, talking to the church. Well, they discovered in, I believe, the 1920s, the ruins of Pergamum. They actually discovered this place, and they found the temple of Zeus. Zeus was supposed to be the god of all gods, the one that made them all. And they found his throne. There was a literal, incredible throne. So they got permission, and they took that entire temple and the throne to Berlin. And it's there to this day. You can go see it. It's a beautiful thing. It's stone carved. But at the time when it was written, Zeus, where Satan has his throne, well, they moved that to Germany in the early 1930s. I don't know if you know much about World War II, like 20th century, but some bad things happened in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. And Satan having his throne there in Berlin is not really a hard stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, the persecution of God's people.
Yep.
Yeah, and then that Ishtar Gate, a lot of that stuff ended up to Berlin, and they were really big into the mystics. Yeah, but a lot of people don't realize Hitler was going after a lot of mysticism. You know, when we watch the Indiana Jones movies, him trying to find the Ark of the Covenant and the Spear of Destiny and all that stuff, that's not just entertainment.
Yeah, and a lot of his thing, of course, was what? Going for the Superman, you know, the Nazi Superman. And a lot of what you see today with a lot of the medical stuff is living forever. And I think that a lot of what the gods, lowercase g, are going to be coming back with is a lot of promises about health. One strange little passage in Revelation, it talks about these locusts that come to torment men for 5 months, and says they will long for death, but death will elude them. Death is not hard to come by. It's not hard to die. But these things, these people are going to be so tormented and so much pain, they're going to try to die and can't. Why not? And maybe they're accepting some sort of God DNA from these Nephilim, these aliens, and that ends up being a mistake. The mark of the beast, not so good. And even though it's promising eternal life and health and youth and all this such.
Oh, yeah. And then even with the dumbs, you see the elite and even our government making all these underground bunkers and cities and different things like that. What it talks about in the book of Revelation, the kings of the earth will hide themselves within the mountains to try to avoid judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that, I mean, it's my own hypothesis. I keep talking about aliens being demonic, but my own hypothesis on this is just my own studying. I think aliens tend to come in 3 flavors. You've got the grays, the big ones, the little ones, but I'm going to lump them all together. I believe those are some sort of DNA creepy Nephilim creation that they created because somebody needs to mop the floors. They need to they're soulless, just quasi-intelligent things just to drive things around and move stuff around. Okay, so the insect ones and the lizard ones, I think they're just meat suits. I think that demons they don't have anything to be inside. And that's got to kind of suck for them that they once had bodies. They were once these Rephaim. They were the gods, and now they got nothing. So they made some DNA creation that they can kind of drive around in, and when one breaks, they can make a new one. And then the final one that they have are the Nordics. The Nordics are the big, beautiful 7-8 feet, not talking about truly people from Scandinavia. I've heard people say that, but they're big, humanoid, beautiful. And I think those are modern day Nephilim. I think when they first did this in Genesis 6, they got pot luck. Whatever monstrosity came out of the womb is what they got. Now they're actually tinkering with it. They're blending. They're actually creating this. And what I think is about to happen is they're going to show themselves openly, and they're going to pretend to have a war where the creepy aliens, the reptiles and sectoid ones, are going to be attacking, and then these Nordic ones are going to be our saviors. They're going to have a big old war. They're going to fight these things, defeat them, and then they're going to step up and say, we are your gods, lowercase g, and that's what's going to happen. That's my hypothesis, and especially if they can kill one of these insectoids or lizard things, they don't care. They were just borrowing it anyway. Get another one out of the warehouse. That's just my own personal hypothesis on the matter.
Yeah. And one thing too, a lot of people look over is Deuteronomy 32. because you have these Genesis 6 fallen angels, that came down, they were imprisoned, and their offspring spirits were left to roam. But then Deuteronomy 32 happens. At the Tower of Babel, it says that not only were the tongues divided, the nations was divided amongst the B'nai Ha-Elohim, the sons of God. And then Psalms 82 talks about how they ruled unjustly. They desire to live the eternal life, but they will die and fall like any prince. And that explains why the world is in such bad shape that it is now, because these ruling principalities are still ruling today. And so those are the ones that could possibly be the Nordics that you're talking about. Those are the ones that are still here, still angelic, but they're in rebellion. Once we had Timothy Alberino on the show, and he said something that was pretty eye-opening. He said, not all of these UFO and spacecrafts that we see might not be all of our enemies. Some may be the angelic race here to protect us and ensure our dominion. I thought that was pretty cool. Well, Richie, thank you for your time, brother. I don't want to keep you all day, but definitely appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experience.
This has been a great discussion. I kind of want to keep going. We need to do this again over bourbon.
Definitely. And some cigars.
Bourbon. I live in Kentucky now, so yeah, you bring the cigars, I'll bring the bourbon.
All right, man, because definitely want to take some road trips up there this summer and film some stuff, so I'll be definitely in contact with you. You
got my number. We'll do it.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Richie, thank you for coming on. Right. I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, torches high.